the night sweats you will experience, the lack of sleep, and when you do sleep, the nightmares and the weird dream states and having murderous thoughts during the day when somebody stares at you awkwardly. It's not enjoyable, man. It really turns you into a weirdo. Welcome to Vigorous Response. I'm Coach Steve. A couple days ago, me, Derek, and Leo recorded another episode of the Bio Bros, the Super Physiological Man podcast, or is it Super Physiologic podcast? Either way, one of the clips did very well on Derek's More Plates, More Dates YouTube channel, and within 48 hours, that video already got 122,000 views, pretty close to 4,000 likes, and only 60 dislikes. So that's a pretty good response. It got 760 comments, and that video was called, "He Took Over 1,000 milligrams of Trenbolone." And this is what happened. But, when you look at the thumbnail, which was taken 2.5 years ago after a photo shoot, where I actually didn't take Trenbolone, because I stopped taking Trenbolone 5 years ago, maybe 7 years ago, at my wife's request. So in that picture, I took testosterone and Winstrol, and I think I took a little diuretic to shed a little bit of subcutaneous water. And I put a lot of bleach in my hair, obviously, because, that ended up pretty blonde. So don't look anywhere close to that right now. So I'm sure some of the comments will be like, this guy took 1,000 milligrams of Tren, but he doesn't look like anything. So let's go through the comment section and see what the overall response was. Starting with the most liked and loved comment on this video from F. Google, which I can't really say because I love Google for providing me with sweet monetization and an AdSense account. So I'm gonna rename you to Love Google, and Love Google comments, "Steve is the last guy I expected to have a cycle this stupid under his belt." Laughing my ass off. Yeah, you're 100% correct. Unfortunately, for the sake of bodybuilding and for the sake of experimentation, I did a lot of stupid shit in my younger years that I'm a little bit embarrassed about, but I'm not afraid to open up and talk about to, hopefully I can prevent somebody out there from making the same mistakes. Now, you got to remember that a couple of years ago, we didn't really have YouTube as a source of information where guys that you can see how they look like, what they look like in the past, how they look like now. And they were open and transparent of what they did and what was working and what certainly wasn't working. Back then, we only had the forums. And on the forums, everybody was behind anonymity. And if they were to post a picture, usually half the body parts were blurred out, so you wouldn't recognize them, right? Now, back then, there was a little bit of a race going on to see who could tolerate the most amount of Trenbolone and get away with it. So at the time, I was running 700 milligrams of Trenbolone per week with a low dose of testosterone, and I was getting pretty good results. Everything you would expect from a pretty hefty dose of Trenbolone, recomping nicely, getting stronger, looking fuller, more muscle, but getting leaner in the process. And I was like, you know what? I'm getting good results. Maybe I can get even better results when I up the dose to 1,000 milligrams of Trenbolone per week. And that's where all these crazy side effects started happening. High blood pressure, edema around my ankles. It was not super pronounced, but it was there. I noticed it from going from 700 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams of Trenbolone per week. Stupid mistake. I'm sure my blood pressure was way out of line. And again, I didn't have an Omron, wrist cuff that you could check around your wrist or an arm cuff to frequently check your blood pressure. So it was a stupid experiment. And I did a lot of stupid experiments in my younger years that I'm, willing to talk openly about. So you guys don't have to, and undergo that weird roller coaster of side effects. Next comment is from Snake Eyes. Steve looks 12 now. Steve looks 12 now and lost all his gains. Well, I don't think I look 12, but depending on, some people say I look younger and some people say I look 37, close to 40. So I think it really depends on who you ask. 12, certainly not. I might act like a 12-year-old sometimes. You can ask my wife to confirm that. Throwing a temper tantrum here and there. But I did lose all of my gains. Well, I didn't lose. The weird thing is, I'm still 93 kilos, which is, for bodybuilders is not very heavy. Most bodybuilders like 100, 110, 120 kilos, absolute freak mountain of muscle. But 93 kilos for the general population is still pretty big. And I still fill out my XL clothes. So it's not the end of the world, but I lost almost 20 kilos and I got fatter in the process. So let's say 25 kilos of, sheer bodybuilding mass. And it's a steep decline, but I came off hormones and I did my PCT when all the hormones were completely declined. And my natural testosterone is around 500 nanograms per deciliter. I'm not training and I'm fasting right now. So everything, and I'm flat and watery. Let's add that to it, and this is bad lighting and it's at the end of the day. And I had a lot of sodium, all these comments that, make you or explains why you look terrible, right? So even at my worst, I'm still 93 kilos, but I'm sure I'll end up at 90 kilos when I'm ready to get back to training after this fasting mimicking diet is over. Again, I've gone through this process before. The last time I traveled, I ended up at 73 kilos skinny fat with a lower back, which was literally this thick. Absolutely disgusting. It was like my lower back was the same thickness, was the same bulge as my butt. Right? It was just straight down. So I had to use belts, to keep everything in place. And then within 2 months, muscle memory kicked in and I went on a cycle and, added in a little bit of growth hormone and I was 92 kilos and my lower back went from this to about this, about half. So really, it's not a big deal, but it is very apparent. And I can completely understand why some of the comments are going to be bad because I certainly don't look like a bodybuilder right now. My apologies. John Kleemeier comments, I hope I pronounced it correctly, John. Tell Steve to turn his bass down. He sounds like a lawnmower, not a human. And again, my apologies, John, and everybody else. I just bought a new microphone, a Blue Yeti X, and I adjusted it, and it sounded very nice when I listened back to the recordings. And then on the Zoom recording, I noticed immediately that the bass was way too low. So the previous recording, previous Bio Bros, we recorded that with my webcam audio. So the little, out of the box cookie cutter microphone that was in that webcam. And it sounded like I was in a submarine. So I got upset and I immediately bought a Blue Yeti X for, a little bit too overpriced considering all the importation taxes here in Thailand. Because I certainly didn't want to sound like submarine again. And then I overdid the bass a little bit. So I reconfigured the Blue Yeti X. And hopefully by the next podcast, I sound a little bit more leveled and not as lawnmower-like. Anybody else watched The Lawnmower Man back in the days? Comment if you did. No. And then this comment pops up. Atharva Mutsaddi. And again, I hope I pronounced it correctly. Steve's voice is the most impressive thing I've heard. So there's a little bit of discrepancy between how people experienced the voice on the last podcast. I will turn the bass down a little bit. Hopefully it will still sound impressive, but not anywhere close to a lawnmower. Next comment is from Eric Balderrama. Poor VigorousSteve. His neck and traps look terrible without the sauce. Literally doesn't even look like the same person. Literally doesn't look like he ever worked out. Literally doesn't look like a bodybuilder. Literally looks like a pencil neck. Literally Chad Nichols. Actually, he didn't say all of that. I just kept going after literally. Either way, he's correct. I do look terrible without the sauce, but hey, guys, you can't stay saucy forever, even though you can stay on hormone replacement indefinitely, or I feel that it's safe given your blood work markers are in range and you're doing frequent checkups to make sure you're on the right track. But I decided to come off cycle, and after a while, I decided to stop training, and I also decided to fast. So, looking a little bit terrible and certainly not like a bodybuilder is to be expected. And Eric, at one point in time, you're going to go through the same process where you're going to have to slim down because you can't stay large and in charge forever. But you can still look like you worked out, but you will not look like the same person. So, one day you will understand, my friend. This one got a lot of likes as well. Mike the Jedi comments, when Steve said his wife asked him to stop, I imagined him randomly giving her clothes lines for not cleaning to his standard, or incorrectly labeling the chicken. Glad you made it out alive. The funny thing is, like, when I was on Trenbolone, and that was in the beginning of a relationship, right? In the first 2 years. I was never moody. I'm never moody and angry at my wife. She might say otherwise because we do get in an argument, but it's not about her or anything that she does. I don't show any hate or aggression or frustration towards her. It's always about something else, like the air conditioning, which we're trying to fix for the last 3 months. And, Carrier, the provider of this air conditioning, is not very forthcoming with their spare parts. So, I get a little bit of into an argument but it's never about her. And when I was in Trenbolone, I would just bitch and complain about the smallest little thing. And after a while, she just got tired of it. So why are you complaining about the people in the BTS staring at you? You look different than everybody else. What do you expect? Why are you complaining about the laundry falling on the floor and this kind of stuff? I would just get a little bit upset and moody and grumpy for the smallest little thing. And she didn't enjoy that very much. So I came off. Fair play. You're in a relationship. You're married. You can't only selfishly thinking about your bodybuilding aspirations and stand the Trenbolone sandwich. So I came off. But, obviously I made it out alive. And our relationship is absolutely phenomenal. So for the guys that are on Trenbolone selfishly and their wife is their partner is begging them to stop with the Trenbolone, listen, your relationship will be a lot better. Trust me. Trust me on this. Conehead comments. Do you guys remember that Conehead movie? It was a great movie. It's about a couple aliens that get stranded on Earth, and they got this large cone head, and then one of the guys goes to the dentist, and he got like 3 rows of teeth. I watched that when I was very young as well. Is that an 80s? I think it's an 80s movie. Anyway, Conehead comments, Steve's the oldest, but looks 25. Ha ha ha. And honestly, I think it's the Zoom video quality. So it looks a little bit like faded. So all the blemishes and all the imperfections and all the wrinkles, trust me, I have a ton. They're all kind of processed out. So I think I look a little bit younger on the Zoom conference call than I do right here using this high quality video camera. So, and it highly depends on the person. Some guys say I look younger and some guys I say I look, close to 40. So, thank you for your compliments, but not everybody seems to agree. Saverio DiGravina comments, and again, I'm just guesstimating based on your name, so, if the accent or the pronunciation is off, I'm sorry. Saverio DiGravina comments, Yo, with Steve's super physiological hair genetics, his hairstyle is bordering on a crime against humanity. Grow that out like a Greek god, bro. By the way, being an American, I can listen to his Australian. I can listen to his Australian accent all day. Saverio, you need to travel a little bit more. I'm not from Australia, and I'm not even going to try an Australian accent. I'm from Holland, so I have a slight underlying Dutch accent, which is certainly not as bad as Wesley Visser's accent. But it is Dutch, not Australian. But apparently there's, plenty of people moved from Holland to Australia, just like plenty of people moved from United Kingdom to Australia as well. So yeah, I'm sorry for this hairstyle. People were a little bit upset when I clipped it and I turned myself into a bald, raging bodybuilder. And now that it's back, some people like it, some people don't. Again, you don't have to watch me talk. You can just listen and treat this like a podcast if this hairstyle offends you. But my justification for it, Thailand is hot and I'm sweating buckets, whenever I go and leave my house and leave the comfort of my air conditioning. And if I put a little bit of hair gel, it will all come sliding down over my face. So I like this hairstyle. Again, guys, I'm going to grow it a little bit out, but I will start going to the hairdresser because I've been doing this myself. And, obviously it's not the best hairstyle, but during COVID, some of the hairdressers, at least the good ones, were closed. So I had to DIY it myself with clippers at home. But I agree, I'm due for a hair stylist appointment going forward. The problem is being on growth hormone, you have to go like twice a week for it to look good. And the fades here in Thailand are, not the best quality. And I've been to a lot of hairdressers here. I don't think they can really deal with my hair over, traditional Asian hair. All the Asians get a perfect fade, and then my fade is like blotchy. Yeah, so don't fault me for doing it at home, because you go out and you spend an hour getting a good haircut, and then it lasts for 2 days and it doesn't look so good anymore. GSoE 21 comments, I only watched the first 30 seconds of this video. Steve suggested 150 milligrams of Trenbolone acetate per day. All I needed to hear, meet you guys at 280. And I'm sure he means 280 pounds. Yeah, it's, a confirmation bias is very strong in this fitness space, right? So people, I'm sure this guy was just trolling. So I'm sure he just made a joke. But, unfortunately, in this bodybuilding space, it's very common for the guys that pick apart like a very small segment of what they want to hear and then go apply, not the full story. That's why my videos are sometimes a little bit annoying. I put all the disclaimers in the beginning and the possible side effects. And then towards the end, I get into the dosing. Hopefully people make a little bit better decision going forward. But yeah, you can pick and choose what you want, obviously, from these YouTube videos, whether they're on my channel or on Derek's channel or on Leo's channel. But just take it from me, 150 milligrams of Trenbolone acetate per day is a nightmare. The night sweats you will experience, the lack of sleep, and when you do sleep, the nightmares and the weird dream states and having murderous thoughts during the day when somebody stares at you awkwardly. It's not enjoyable, man. It really turns you into a weirdo, to the outside world and internally. I felt very weird when I was running 150 milligrams of Trenbolone acetate per day, and it took a while to clear out. So I think that was the last time I run a high dose tren cycle. And going forward, I experimented a little bit with like 50 milligrams of Trenbolone per day, which is still pretty hefty. And then the last time I did 75 3 times a week or 2 times a week. And even then I got horrible cardiovascular endurance and my cardio performance was horrible. And, after making love to my wife, I had to lay there to recover my super elevated heart rate. And you don't notice it when you're, yeah, you don't notice it during, but afterwards it's like you sprinted and you just did a marathon. So, never, Trenbolone, never again. And then the last comment of this YouTube video is from Christopher Caldwell. VigorousSteve looks like a James Bond villain. But which James Bond villain? And is that from the old James Bond movies or from the new ones after it got rebooted? You guys let me know in the comment section which James Bond villain I actually look like. Is that Blofeld? The new Blofeld? The old Blofeld? Jaws? Mine can be Jaws. And even though I don't have an androgenic jawline like I did before, I could identify with Jaws, friendly giant, even though I'm not tall and I don't have an androgenic jawline. You guys don't say odd job. Man, I will downvote your comments if you say odd job. I could be Mr. Hinks. Both don't talk. Mr. Hinks doesn't talk and odd job didn't talk, right? I think I watched all James Bond movies, multiple times. I went to all the James Bond movies in my lifetime that got released in the cinema. And I'm waiting for that new one. I'm very excited. It's going to be fun. And I'll probably watch that 2 times in the cinema. For the guys that love James Bond, I can highly recommend an anime from Japan called Lupin the Third. It has some James Bond undertones, but it's about a guy that is a thief. So it's a little bit like James Bond, the womanizing stuff, and then the playfulness and the car chases. James Bond's got a lot of car chases, right? And the high rolling stuff, going to the bar and ordering crazy drinks. You guys will like Lupin the Third. I think there's twice as many movies of Lupin the Third as there are James Bond movies. There are probably like 50 movies. And most of them are anime. I think there's one live action. And there's another recently released CGI movie. It's all in Japanese. So you will have to sit through those yellow subtitles. But again, I can highly recommend it. And I think that pretty much covers this video series. For the guys that are new to this channel, feel free to join the Vigorous crew. All you have to do is like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment for the algorithm. Or you can leave a comment to mention which James Bond villain I look like. I'll give you guys a front double bicep for the guys that are loyal Vigorous crew subscribers. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for the most comprehensive guides to bodybuilding pharmacology, You can find the ebooks on my website, VigorousSteve.com/shop. Personalized advice, you can find the rates to my services in the services section. Contact me directly if you're interested. Follow me on Instagram @VigorousSteve. Much love, and I'll see you guys in the next video.